when 28 associated shocks are in the main, but only 4 associated cars are on the grid? Interesting. Let's find out more. Hi. What's up, Dave Wentz? Hey, Dave, are you going to the RCGP? You need to sign up. What's up, Bullock Brain? Okay, we got a busy Facebook Live episode here. Got a lot to go over. Gonna talk some 10 scale worlds. Nerds in a barn. Nerds in a barn. Not in a field this time. Q&A. Q&A until a certain number. So what's the number? Someone said 88. We're not going to do that. We're going to do 121. 121. Because that's how many two-wheel drive drivers were at this race. So 121. So spam everyone. Ask your mother politely to watch. And we can get started. And you can ask questions. This is the Q&A, so better ask questions now. There were some on Facebook here. Let me find the questions. So who is running associated shocks? Yokomo guys? Aren't Yokomo shocks good? People complaining because I was a bit late. Let's see what the questions were. Are you the Ronnie Mac of the RC world? I should be. We should have like cool RC videos of transfers and doing laps, fully pinned the whole lap. Talk about shock oil versus spring, what to do and why. No, I won't, because you have to listen to the No Name RC podcast. We talk about it there. So, 95, keep sharing. Maybe ask your dad to watch too. Any brothers and sisters, girlfriends, ex-girlfriends, boyfriends, ex-boyfriends? Get them watching. Okay, so we have some questions here. What do you think of the new Yokomo four-wheel drive prototype? So, if you saw the Yokomo, it has the same layout as the HB. Does X-Ray have that too? I don't know. Actually, I'm surprised that it's taken companies this long to move the weight more forward. I figured a long time ago, I don't have a 10 scale here now, that the way they had it, the motor was sort of in the middle, a bit further back, and then the shorty battery at the back also. I always felt like the weight is too far back on the four-wheel drive cars. It just makes them slower. You need to move the weight further forward. And yeah, HB did, and it was good, it was fast, and now everyone's, you know, moving to that. So yeah, I think it's a good move, good change. And there's that new TLR also, all three of them. That's actually something. Well, let's talk about that when we talk about the worlds. More questions, we still need more people on there, more questions. What do you think about racing on VRC Pro? Does it help to improve your real RC racing skills? The VRC is the RC video game. I don't really know. I don't know. It is quite different, you know, so I don't know if it really helps. I have to catch up with the comments. Yokomo should have used Kyosho shocks. So why aren't Yokomo running Yokomo shocks then? I don't get it. Is there a new Techno also coming tomorrow? New Techno 10 scale? I don't think so. How important is luck in a race? I think luck, I think you make your own luck to a large extent. Most of the time when people say, oh, I was really unlucky, or oh, he was so lucky, it's actually not, it's not really that it was just luck that decided it. It was, you made your own luck by doing everything right and being really good and preparing well and being in the right place at the right time, and then you got lucky because someone flamed out. Like the leader flamed out, you were second, and then you won. Okay, that's lucky, yes. But also, there were, what about all the other people in the race? Why weren't they there? You know, why weren't they in second at that point? So you kind of make your own luck. And also, especially with bad luck, people say, oh, my rear shock fell off. I was so unlucky. No, you weren't. You were an idiot in the pits. Tools, you know, use them properly. Put the right screws in the right places. Use thread lock, you know, check your car. That's why your shock fell off. Not because it was bad luck. It's bad luck if a dog runs onto the track during a race and takes a shit in a corner, and you drive into that corner and you hit the piece of the shit in the corner, and that makes you spin out, and you lose the race because of that. Because of the dog shit in the corner. That's bad luck. Because the previous lap, there was nothing there. You didn't know to expect a dog to run on the track, take a shit in a corner, and then you hit that and you lose the race. That's bad luck, but that's very rare. That doesn't tend to happen. 125, so we can start. Let's just answer these questions anyway. And then I'm going to talk, what was I supposed to talk about? 10 scale, I think. I lost, I even made notes. I lost them. Oh yeah. 10 scale worlds after this. Okay, more questions. Oh yeah, I'll do this first because I forgot last time. Someone was asking, because I said that when I practice, I do 5-minute runs. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I do. We go to the timer. You can set a goal time. I set the goal time to 5 minutes, pre-alarm to 10 seconds, and start trigger off. Use this button right there. You can use it with your thumb. So you can drive normally, click off laps here. What else do you need to know? RTFM. Read the freaking manual. When you go to the lap timing screen, press and hold that button. It activates. Oh, I can't even use this. Sorry, it doesn't. Press this, the one you take a lap with. Press and hold that. Starts blinking. Next time you press, starts timing. You see that? You do a lap. Click a lap off. After 5 minutes, when you click a lap, it stops. And then you'll have, oh, 9 laps in 5 minutes, 7 seconds. I'm really good. Then, if you hold it down, it resets. And then you can start again. Okay. Is the air filter on the Black Edition too small, as Jeff says? No. Jeff's brain is too small. Then again, I mean, brain size doesn't really matter too much. I mean, elephants have huge brains, but they aren't smarter than humans. So it's not about brain size. Sorry, I have to catch up with these comments. Okay. Caught up with them. A few more questions on Facebook. Some have to do with 10 scale world, so we'll cover that when I talk about the 10 scale stuff. People asking about the brands there and format. Okay, done with that crap. Let's talk 10 scale worlds. Okay, first of all, there's not much info out there, is there? I mean, I actually watched the qualifying for the top heats, and I watched the mains, and that's about it. But I'm pretty disappointed, like Red RC aren't there, and you can't read about it there. You can read funny jokes and satire, yeah, but that's not like, it's not actually what the drivers are thinking or feeling or saying or doing, you know, so there's not much information. That's a bit of a shame. It's a world championship after all. And one thing was interesting. So the stats, I was checking, there's 48 associated cars, 33 X-rays, 18 Yokomos, okay? And those three actually made up all the brands in the main. Only 3 brands in the main. That's ridiculous. Then Schumacher 10, Kyosho 7, TLR 3, PR1, HB1. So TLR, when TLR was low, see, it was one of the big ones, big along with associated. Okay, maybe when it changed to TLR also. But now, I don't know what's going on. Seriously. 3 cars. Okay, let's see who those 3 were. Fend, paid driver. Savoia, paid driver. Who's the third one? There must be one more paid driver there. Let's check. Who was the third TLR? Didn't they post a picture of their new 4-wheel drives? Maybe we'll see them tomorrow. I mean, there's no way there's anything original on that car. It's just going to be another generic, like, associated Yokomo X-ray thing. Let's face it. Where did they post that picture? Who's that third guy? Yeah, 10 scale worlds is control tire. And no gyros allowed. So, yeah, so no TLRs in the main and only 3 cars there. That's a really big disappointment from them. Actually, you know what? I got something special here, I forgot. Kampai, Asahi. There we go. Tom Rinderknecht. I don't even know how to say his name. Tom R. So Tom R is there for TLR. TLR, I think it stands for the last resort. So there's 3 people there who are using the last resort now. There's actually another one too. That's rude. I'm going to get in trouble if I say it. I'm going to say it anyway. Team Losers and Retards. TLR. Team Losers and Retards. Pay bloody first world internet. Look, I'm not going to pay because I'm leaving here in a week. So people were talking about the format. So watching the worlds, there's a lot of practice, there's a lot of qualifying, and then there's 3 mains. And it's just not that interesting, to be honest. And there's not a lot going on in those mains. Cars driving in procession, there's not a lot of passing. Yeah, I would have to agree, actually. I think they definitely need to change the format up a bit. But some people say, okay, we can run 10 minutes. That's not going to help. Then it's just going to be longer, boring mains. I think 5 or 6 minutes is right. Maybe 6 minutes would be the perfect length of race for 10 scale. I don't think the races should be longer. They should stay short. But there should definitely be more heads-up racing. So you have your qualifying first, and then you have some sort of qualifying races. So the way you qualify is you race other cars on the track. I think that would be much more interesting. And then after that, I think they need to change the system so there's bump ups. Because now, at a race like this, most of the drivers in the B main don't give a shit because they wanted to be in the A main. So that it's drivers like Tebow and I don't know who was in there, Ronne Falk, Orlovsky. They don't care about some B main, Dustin Evans, you know, because they expect to be in the A main. And if they're not in there, then they don't care anymore. So the B main loses its point or value. There's no value to it. But if there was a bump up, then it would be a good race. Then it would be exciting. And then everyone in that B main would be excited and they would try. They would make an effort and it would be exciting to watch. So if you had bump ups, then all the lower mains would actually be exciting. Now there's like a D main and no one gives a shit. Like, meh, whatever. Some guys in there don't care at all because they qualified lower than what they wanted or expected. Then there are some drivers who are happy because they qualified sort of better than expected. And then they race together. It's just, it doesn't work. You need to make it so there are bump ups. Bump ups will make every main exciting to the end, also for the races and for people watching too, because if there's a fight for the bump up, then it actually matters and yeah, you can pick favorites and it's more fun. So less time spent on just driving against the clock with practice and seeding and qualifying. More time with qualifying races. So you qualify racing other cars and then you have these normal mains, except you also have bump ups. That would make it a lot more interesting. And to fill the time there, because you have to run 3A mains somehow, would have to think of something to put in there between those mains. So for example, you know, junior races or 40 plus races or something, or, you know, a race for TLRs that don't make the main, you know, something like, think of something. Well, there's only 3 of them there. So I don't know, but you get the idea. So you have the bump ups and then you have the mains. Just make it more interesting. And the length, I don't think 10 scale races should be long. I think they should remain short, 5 or 6 minutes, just to keep the field close and make it really, what's the word I'm looking for? Like make it so you can't make mistakes, you know, and all the action is right. All the action happens right then and there. Like there's a start, there's a short race, done. Now don't draw it out. There's no reason for that. ETS series has bump ups this year. So how did ETS do it? If ETS can do it, then 10 scale off-road can do it too. Barry Baker, do you care about the B main since you are always in them? Good one, Barry, good one. No, usually not. Usually not. Like World's B main, yeah, because it's still good, and if you can win the B main, then you finish 11th. So that's still a pretty good result, and you're the first one out of the main. So Worlds, I'd say yes, but any other race pretty much, not really. Tebow would have bumped, exactly. If you're not in top 5, you can forget. Okay, you know what? This should actually be a rant on the No Name RC podcast, but I'm going to say this right now. Okay, there are 2 huge problems in RC right now. Big problems. It's not IFMAR. Bigger problem than that. So, 2. 1, 5 driver podiums. What the hell is that? A podium is for the top 3. First, second, third. Fourth, you're off the podium. Get the fuck away from here, okay? We don't need 5 at the podium. Oh yeah, what position? 5th. Get the fuck out of here. You didn't make the podium. You finished 5th. That's halfway down the main. That's average. Don't care about that. Oh, turn the hotspot off. Yeah, so five driver podiums big no-no. The second thing, what's Mark asking here? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you posted two things. How many 10th worlds have you done? And best finish. I've done 1 10th worlds when it was in Finland, I think. I think that's it, yeah. Yeah, 1 10th worlds and I finished 12th in 4-wheel drive. Fuck. I was 1 chicane out of the main. That still stings. That still stings. So 12th in 4-wheel and maybe C main in 2-wheel. Not sure. Yeah, 5-man podiums. Second thing, vice champion. Oh my God. You are not a vice champion. You finished second. You are not a champion. You're no kind of champion, okay? You've just finished second. You lost the race. Ongaro is not the vice 2-wheel drive world champ. He's not a champion. He is second. Spencer Rivkin is world champion. Ongaro is no sort of champion. Not whatsoever. Nothing. No. He's second. He didn't win any championship. You don't get a vice championship trophy. Like, if Spencer passes away, Ongaro, you will become world champion. No, it doesn't work like that. The hell is that? So stupid. Vice champ wins if first is DQ. Okay, so you can be a vice champion for like 30 minutes. And after that, you're not a vice champion anymore, okay? Jesus Christ. X-Ray is vice podium champion. X-Ray is a vice podium finisher and TLR is vice finalist. Okay, so the TLR team is basically vice finalists. Okay, Jesus Christ, that's so silly. Runner-up, okay, glad we covered that. What else about the 10 scale worlds? We talk about it a lot on the podcast, so don't want to repeat everything from there, but Rivkin, very solid. Great in qualifying, stable in the mains, except the first one where he made a mistake. So yeah, he's the man right now. Rivkin is the man right now in 10 scale. Didn't he win the Nationals too in 2-wheel? Mayfield in 4-wheel? Mayfield is also, I mean, I expect Mayfield to be really good in 4-wheel. I'm looking forward to 4-wheel drive. So anyway, Rivkin, solid. Ongaro, I'm actually a bit surprised he's this good because he doesn't run much 10 scale. He doesn't, and especially 2-wheel drive. He doesn't really practice it much. Races, what, 3 races a year? And he only started 2 or 3 years ago. When did he start running 10 scale? So it's incredible. And he even can maintain the same sort of driving style, which is interesting. He opens up the corners, goes wide, carries his momentum, his speed around the track. You can see it in the main. You watch when him and Rivkin are close. They take different lines. Rivkin is a bit more point and shoot, and Ongaro kind of flows around and goes wide. You're like, where's he going? And then he comes in, and yeah, it's really interesting. Internet really bad. Well, I'm sorry. Nothing I can do about that. So yeah, Ongaro really is an amazing driver. And yeah, I'm curious to see if he will still improve. Like, is he still improving or what? Because it's amazing. Third place Japanese guy, Sugiura. I hadn't really heard of him. Someone said that he is normally like bottom of A, top of B kind of guy. So yeah, this must be his best race in 10 scale so far. Because he was solid in qualifying, solid in the mains. I think first and second main he was nervous because his first laps were bad. Second main he got taken out, but still, like, he was nervous. He wasn't, you could tell from the video. But the last main he was solid and third place. And other than that, in 2-wheel, anything special? Team Yokomo didn't do as well as expected. So maybe the car wasn't as good as it should have been because all the Yokomo guys were a bit down. I mean, Lee was way down in the B main, Cavalieri and Mayfield, they were low in the A. That's why it's kind of strange. Like Sugiura was running Yokomo, and he had an awesome race. So, I mean, what was going on there? Didn't they run the same setup, or he just likes a really weird car? I don't know what was happening. But that was strange to see Mayfield not really on the pace. Tessman, I expected more from Tessman too. That was also a bit strange. I think for X-Ray, Coelho, Bayer, Tessman, honestly, I think, well, not so much Tessman there. I think Coelho and Bayer and Kobbevik. I think four-wheel drive is their stronger class. So they did well in two-wheel also. And now in four-wheel, I think now we'll see them shine. So let's see. Let's think about four-wheel drive. We have some drivers who didn't really feature that much in two-wheel. So same guys will be fast as in two-wheel. But we can add. I think Mayfield will be much faster. I think Ronnefalk will be fast. And I think Barufalo will also be fast. And I think in general the X-Ray guys will be faster than they were in two-wheel. So it will change things a bit. So I think Ongaro won't be as fast in four-wheel as he was now in two-wheel. Rivkin will still be fast. And then we add Mayfield, all the X-Ray guys, Ronnefalk. TLR, I don't know. I just heard that they even had some trouble. The TLR car was too wide, so it wouldn't fit in the box they have to measure the cars. So who knows? I mean, if that's the level of their preparation, that they don't even have a legal car, then yeah, I'm not gonna put any TLRs in there. Tessman has orders to not beat the Euro guys. Exactly. Who else? I mean, Boots. Oh, yeah, and don't forget, by the way, when I say X-Ray guys will be better, that includes Kobbevik and Barufalo. So Kobbevik and Barufalo, they'll bump up a lot too. And Boots, yeah, he'll be fast, but I don't think he'll be on the level of these other guys. Maybe he'll be in the B. Anthony Westergaard says Mayfield, Tebow, Boots. Oh yeah, Tebow with the Techno. He'll be faster also in four-wheel, I think. But there's no way. There is absolutely no way the podium is Mayfield, Tebow, Boots. But if that was just you reminding me of people, then okay, yeah. But I already did mention Mayfield, so I think that's your podium prediction. Jona will be fast also, yeah. I think Jona will be fast. He was fast in two-wheel also, but I think his nerves got the best of him. He was fast, but couldn't hold it together. Got 1 second place. But yeah. Yeah, so Mayfield, T-Man Boots, faster in four-wheel than two-wheel. I would have to agree with that. Is there anything else about the Worlds? Yeah, one more thing. So I don't like how the track is so big. I think for 10 scale, the tracks need to be a bit smaller. There should be some sort of rule, like maximum lap time or physical size of the space. The reason is that on a track like this, when the track is so big, the speeds are high, the racing suffers. Because you can't, when you are that far away from the driver's stand, especially with the two-wheel drive, like you can't really jump to the inside of someone and try and do some pass because it's just gonna end in tears. But if the track is smaller and everything is happening closer to the driver's stand, speeds are lower, then you can start racing each other. And then we have these epic battles like many of the Reedy races have had. So I think for 10 scale, the key is you make a very technical track. So the track is difficult. It's not just, like the Nationals track was terrible, the US Nationals track, because it was too easy. Everyone was doing that exact same thing, that exact same line around the track and lap after lap after. No, that doesn't work. You need to make a track lower speed, more technical, maybe a line choice of going inside over a jump or using a berm going wide. Because what happens is, when you have two cars following each other, if you're the first car and you go outside, the other guy can like dive in front of you, block pass or something. So you're gonna take the inside line. Well, if the inside line is slower, you're ahead of another guy, you think, oh, I'm gonna have to go inside to block the inside. The other guy goes wide, you will end that section maybe side by side, you know? Maybe that's a way to pass. You block that, cover the inside so you don't get past, but then you get past in the next section because inside's a bit slower. Like, so I think track builders need to focus on making more interesting tracks, more technical tracks, and for 10 scale, need to make it a rule that the track has to be smaller. So the drivers can see, they can navigate a more technical track and make passes and make the racing more exciting. So I think the world's track is too big. It's a whole size for the 1/8 scale chassis testing. Yeah, it's like a 8 scale track size is what I feel too. I don't think they should have used all the dirt surface. They should have made it smaller. I'd have preferred that. And the lap times are what, 30, what were they? 35? Maybe they should be 25. Maybe the rule should be 25. So lap times are like 20 to 25 seconds. I think that would be good. Okay, let's move on. Enough of this 10 scale crap. We have to talk about how to be a champion, not a fanboy. Okay? We have to talk about how to be a champion, not a fanboy. The reason is that there are way too many fanboys out there. And let's see. I've done 3 of these already, so I can't cover this. I must have written them down somewhere. I can't cover the same ones again. Okay, so the first one was how to be a champ, not a fanboy, is don't follow blindly. So that was the whole story about someone looking up to Tessman and just wanting to be like Ty. You know, doing everything he does. No, forget that. Listen to everything he has to say. Get all the information. Soak it all up like a sponge. Do your own thing. Be the first of you. Beat him. Okay, that should be the goal. Not to be like someone. Be better than them. Second, have a plan for practice. Don't just do laps. When you can drive around the track, it's not going to help you if you go to the track every day, just drive around it. You're not going to improve that much. You're going to, plateau at some point. So you need to have a plan. Do 5-minute runs, set goals, achieve the goals, learn about car setup. You need to have a plan. That was number 2. Number 3 was, number 3 had to do with number 2 also. So number 3 was, you have a plan, but then you also have to test properly. And this is something that many professional drivers fail at miserably, is testing properly. And this is also one reason why some professional drivers end up in B mains at big races, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what to do. They go to Slovakia, they're in this big hall. Oh no, the track is fast and it gets rough and it's slippery and my car sucks. And then they're in the B, C, D main. Now, why? Why? They are better than that, right? It's because they don't know what to do to their cars in those conditions. And they don't know what to do because they haven't tested properly. And to test properly, you have to be at a track that's consistent. You have to be in tune with your car, so you drive enough to where you have a good feeling with the car. You can do the same 5-minute time over and over and over. If you make a small change, you can notice it in the feel and also in your 5-minute time and your average lap time and your best laps and so on. So you need to test properly to get reliable results. And when you get reliable results and you go to Slovakia to the Worlds and the track is big, the track gets rough, it's slippery, and your car sucks, you know what to do. Because also, you have a book or your phone where you write down all these things, and then when your car sucks, you know what to do, you change your setup, and then you can be like Rivkin. Dominate that shit. There. So those were the first 3, and now comes the 4th. How to be a champion, not a fanboy. And now we're kind of moving away from the fanboy thing. It's just more like how to be a champion. And it is, guess what it is? Someone guess. I need one guess of what number 4 is, and then I'll reveal the 4th point. Come on. Come on, someone. Come on, one guess. Own your results. Close. Kind of. Number 4 is accepting responsibility. So, yeah, like own your results. Accept responsibility. Far too many people say, this happened, that happened, excuse this, excuse that. And that's not how it works. How it works is if you have a bad race, then it doesn't really matter why or who did what or what happened. It's on you. Like if you win a race, how are you going to say, well, I kind of sucked, but the only reason I won was these other things. No, you're going to be like, yeah, I won. You know, so when you have bad races, it's also on you. So you have to accept responsibility. So don't always don't think of excuses like, oh, I would have won but that, or I would have done better but this. People always tend to have excuses. And when they have excuses, they don't need to look in the mirror. They don't need to figure out things that they need to work on maybe. So that's really important, I think. People who accept responsibility will make the right steps and make the right choices to improve. And people who always blame their equipment or blame something else, they won't. So I think that's a really important thing. Exactly. Own your results in victory and failure. Man up, he says. That's very sexist. So women have to become trans to man up. Can they man up? It's weird, but always when I lose, it's the marshal's fault. Yeah, normally that's the case. Oop. Wrong can. I tell you, what I don't like is with average grade drivers telling you setup advice when they don't really know shit. Know your own mind on setup, and if you don't know it, test it for yourself. Yeah, that is true. Tire is the best excuse for losing. Yeah, you know why Keenan is saying that? Because at the Southern Nats, I ran, I can't remember what compound, Stalkers anyway, and they sucked, really. Like, I swore that I would never run that tire again, and I never have, because I just hated it. But I said, man, these tires sucked. I had other issues too. My engine was running on, and oh my God, it was a terrible disaster. But that's why he was saying that. Personally, I like to woman up, says Matt. Yeah, so accept responsibility, don't make excuses. That's part 4 of how to be a champ. That was a short one. Next week, we'll have number 5. Okay. Number 1 mistake in setup is wrong compounds. Yeah, I should talk about that maybe next week. Next week, I'll talk about tire compounds, because I have a bit of a different way of deciding what compound to run than many other people I've noticed. You didn't say that when I told you they sucked, for fuck's sakes. Yeah, Keenan somehow magically knew that that wasn't the tire to run. Like, Keenan's been right once in his life, and he just will never forget this moment. Anyway, let's talk about shock positions. We need to talk about some setup stuff on this. You know, that's why people have tuned in. So many people watching. That's crazy. Shock positions. How do we start? Where do we start? By the way, I have not planned anything. I was just like, oh, I haven't talked about shock positions, so fuck. Okay, what am I gonna do? Okay, I'm gonna start with the arm. The shock in the arm. Okay, here goes. I'm gonna do my best. Normally, on a car, you have a good basic setup. The manufacturer should tell you what setup to run. The manufacturer says, run this hole for the tower, run this hole for the arm, front, back, this spring, this piston, this oil. The car should be good. So let's assume that that's what the manufacturer has done. If you're running a black edition, then of course that's the case. So your car is performing well. So what happens if you change the shock positions? Okay, let's talk about the arm first. So here we have the shock in the middle. If you were to move this out, oh my God, Keenan. Before I start, let's see what Keenan has to say. Lol, hey JQ, your car looked like shit. What? This is Keenan, so I have to read really carefully. Lol, hey JQ, your car looked like shit, JQ. No, it doesn't. You don't know what you're talking about. Hey JQ, change tires. JQ, shut up. Keenan, you are an idiot after the race and he sucked. JQ, yeah, those tires sucked. So those JQs are, I guess he's trying to say that I said those things, but he's just an idiot the way he writes. I mean, I understand he can only use one hand, but I can type on one hand with one finger and still make sense. But that's too much to ask from Keenan, clearly. I'm not going to read any more of his useless and hopeless posts. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so you have a good setup. You move the shock out on the arm. If you move the shock out on the arm, there's a few things you need to remember. First of all, a lot of people like to measure the shock length for droop. You can just throw that out of the window because it's not going to be the same. So, I mean, you can kind of cheat. You can set the droop first and make with a screw, but that doesn't really work because the shock is always pushing on the arm. So you really have to do it with the shock on. So maybe you measure from that hole you're not using, the middle hole you normally measure from, to make sure it's right. A better way, have wheels on, use a ruler, lift up the front end of the car, for example, with the tires on, and measure it that way. Or if you always measure with those blocks, you put a block under the car and then you measure the height of the hex. Okay, fine, you can do that. But point being, if you move the shock on the arm, you need to adjust droop, big time. So don't forget that. Obviously, you have to do the ride height too. So let's assume you readjust all that crap. What does it do? When you move the shock out on the arm, the suspension acts stiffer. So, for example, on the front end, you move it out, the front end will have more support. So when you go into a corner, you go into the corner, you turn, the front doesn't want to dive on the front end that much anymore. It's harder. Also, you have more pack. So maybe the car won't be as good in bumps anymore. So you could maybe try different pistons if you move it out, because maybe the same piston won't work anymore. When we've done it, we've still run the same piston, but I've actually tended to go from 7 1.25. I've liked running 7 1.3, a bit bigger in the front, and I'm running the shock in the outer position. So when you move the shock out on the arm, the suspension is harder, stiffer. You have more support from the shock. The car doesn't dive as much, and also it has more pack, maybe not as good in bumps. If you go inside, it's pretty much the opposite. So suspension is softer. You can feel immediately that you have more grip. It's better in bumps. Obviously, you have to readjust the droop, ride height, all that stuff. normally I would say that the further out you can run the shock, the faster you will be. That's what I would say. That's kind of a rule of thumb. Yeah, also I could say that when you run the shock on the front further in, it kind of smooths everything out a bit. The car isn't that aggressive, that nervous. So it's smoother to drive with the shock inside. But when you have it out, yes, it's a bit more twitchy, aggressive, but you can just drive faster because you can attack the corners more without risk of the front diving. So I think it's faster when you have the shocks out on the front. On the rear, same thing that I explained for the front. But what do you feel on the track? You feel that you feel a distinct difference in traction. You have less grip when you move it out. And you really notice the bumps more also. On the rear, I don't really change this because it changes so much. It changes everything, really. And I would need to rework my setup to make it work if I would go outside or if I would go inside. So I just stick to the middle, and that's been really good. So what do we learn from this? You run one position on the arm and you don't really change it because you work your whole setup around this position. So on the Black Edition, that is now outside on the front arm and middle on the rear arm. Standard is middle on the front arm and middle on the rear arm. So if you're running standard, maybe it's worth trying outside. If you do run outside, you need to run the old rear shock shafts on the front, JQB 0058, I think it is, because they're longer, so you can get the droop. Or you need to run a long shock end. We've run the HB Racing ones, and we glue them on, because HB has a 4mm shaft, and this is 3.5. So, for the arm, don't really mess with that. Just run what the manufacturer recommends. But then we get to the tower, and this is where you can adjust it, because this is a finer adjustment. It doesn't throw the whole setup out of whack. So yeah, I do change shock positions on the towers quite a bit, and that's a good way to tune the car, I would say. Okay, so let's start with the front end again. The shocks on the front tower. So you have your normal standard setup, it's good, but you need a bit more steering mid-corner. Maybe your car is even a bit twitchy, like it's aggressive in, but then it doesn't really turn in the corner, it pushes a bit. One good idea could be to lay the shocks down on the tower. If you lay the shocks down, front shocks down on the shock tower, initially the steering will be smoother and you'll have more steering mid to exit of the corner. So that could be a good thing to do. That's something I do. Let's say I'm on a loose track and my car pushes a bit. Maybe I try laying the front shocks down. I never really stand the front shocks up more. Why would you want to do that? Maybe you would do that if your front end feels soft. It feels like it's diving when you go in corners and it just feels soft going around the track. Maybe you would try standing them up just to get more support from the front end. It may jump a bit better too. That might be a reason to try it, but yeah, stood up shocks tend to jump more pop of jumps, more pack when you land. So yeah, I think if I would lay down the front shocks, it's because I want to smooth out the front end. Maybe on a rough track also, laying down the front shocks could improve the handling. So yeah, try changing front shock position. Rear shock position on the tower is a bit different because the rear, it affects how the car goes, how the car turns in hairpins, and how the car works on power, and it's a noticeable difference. So, and it's a bit of a trade-off. So again, you have your normal setup that works, and let's say your car is good, but it really pushes in hairpins. you just can't get corner speed. You kind of turns in and then pushes, and you just can't get it to rotate. And you've tried all kinds of other stuff, the normal stuff already. Well, if you lean the rear shock over, that's actually going to help the car rotate in corners. Crazy, I know, but it actually is a big difference. So maybe just by laying the rear shock over, you could get the car to rotate in those corners where it's kind of going in well and then pushing. On the other hand, it's also good to know, like, if your car is over-rotating in those corners, maybe you stand the rear shock up just to kind of calm the car down a bit. So then those hairpins are much easier because the car is more stable, the rear end is more planted. Also, let's say if you are on a track, a grippy track, and you just feel that the rear end is squatting a lot on one corner, like when you accelerate, it's kind of going like that a lot, and it's just not stable. You aren't confident with driving the car on power and exiting corners and that kind of stuff. Then you could also raise the rear shock on the tower. If you stand the rear shock up on the tower, then it's going to support the rear end more. It's not going to squat as much, and you can get on the power more and harder, and the car will take it. So same thing applies for jumping, I think. If you want to adjust for jumping, you really would have to sort of adjust both, I think. If your car is good and balanced, adjust both front and rear together and see what the difference is. Also, for traction, if you lay your shocks down more on the towers, you'll have more grip, but you'll also lose grip faster. So you have more traction up to a point, and then suddenly you will lose the traction. So if you stand your shocks up, you'll have less maximum grip, but you have more consistent grip. So instead of suddenly losing all traction and sliding or spinning out, it will happen more gradually, and you can sort of drift and control it more. So there's that also. So yeah, I wouldn't change the shock position on the arm very much, but on the tower, it's definitely a good tuning aid. Also, let's talk about the black edition specifically. So our standard setup with the flat pistons has been pretty stood up. Like our shocks are one in from all the way out. But then when we've started running the ultimate pistons, the conical pistons with the angled holes, we've run the same holes or just a bit bigger. So instead of 7 2.5, 7.3, instead of 7 1.35, we run 1.4. And also we've laid the shocks over. And that's because with those pistons, it's possible to sort of have the pack that you have with the flat pistons stood up shocks. That you have that feeling in the fast sections, landing, jumping sort of scenario. But then you lay the shock down with those pistons, and you can set the suspension to be more plush. So it's just a different feeling. It's kind of, there are so many things going on, it's hard to explain. If you run the conical piston flat side up, that will make the car a bit more aggressive, okay? If you lean the shocks over, it's gonna make the car more calm. Okay, so those work against each other. Those pistons have more pack, but then you lay the shocks over, which has less pack. So it's just a different sort of combination. And that results in, in similar handling in the way that it will work in the same conditions. You could run those pistons and those lay down shocks everywhere, and it's going to be good. Or you could run the flat pistons everywhere and the stood up shocks, and it's going to be good. But it's just going to be different. It's a choice. And I would say that one benefit of the lay down setup with the ultimate pistons is you can hit jumps faster. So you can approach jumps faster, hit the jump faster, and it's not going to jump as much. So I think that's a good thing because it just doesn't pop as much. So yeah, that's good. What else? Also, I think if you're on a track and it gets polished, if you have a groove and the groove gets polished and it gets slick, I think you have more grip when you have the laid down shocks and those ultimate pistons. So in that condition, it would be good too. Thunder Rally. So the last RCGP is at Thunder Rally, and that's actually going to be interesting because I've done really well there with the flat pistons and stood up shocks. It does the jumps really well. It goes through the bumps really well. It does all sort of like you have to do a corner and immediately do a jump. It's really good there. So it's going to be interesting to see how it performs with laid down shocks and with these ultimate pistons. So I'll try both, and I'll also try those MIP bypass pistons. So yeah, I'm curious to see on an American track like that, which setup is better. Yeah, so also the springs. When I run those ultimate pistons and the shocks are laid down, I tend to, I mean, if it's a really loose track, I could run the THEQuagraine still. If there's medium to high grip, I tend to run the Mugen ones. They've been really good. So 9.0 in front, 10.75 in rear. That's what I mostly run. When I have the shocks stood up, I also, if it's a loose track, run the THEQuagraines. If not, then I have been running the HBs, HB yellow, front and rear. So those are really the springs that I've been running. When do you do sway bar versus shock angle for cornering? That's a good question. So on the rear, when I said that if you lay the rear shock over, you'll have more rotation in some hairpins. For example, if you're going in well, then pushing, you could lay that rear shock over and then you have steering. You can also do that with the sway bar. You could go to a thinner sway bar and that could help. That's true. I think there's no real rule for that. It's something where you can try both. And you can sort of figure out for that track and that condition which is better. Because the result is the same for that corner, but the result everywhere else on the track is not necessarily the same. It's different. Changing a sway bar, changing a shock position, they will affect different things. But on this one section of the track, this one particular thing, the effect is the same. But otherwise they are different. So, yeah. Yeah, so you should try that. Ultimate pistons, conical direction, same front and rear. Yeah, the standard is kind of flat up, cone down, but I've also run flat down, cone up on the rear. That's also been good. You have to watch the Facebook Live where I talk about the MIP pistons. JQ is Ken watching. Who's Ken? Much more length for fluid transfer. Yeah, I don't know what that comment is about. Oh yeah, the angle of the shock from the side. That's... yeah, man. So, you know, on the Associated and Mugens, they have these long standoffs and then they angle the shock back like that and they say it's magic. I tried that, I noticed nothing. Seriously, I didn't notice anything. I mean, this could go under the whole, like, placebo effect thing, or it actually does something. So that's something I have to test one day properly. So when I'm really in tune, I know what's going on, then I'll try that. But I don't know. I really honestly don't think it's such a big deal. I can't see it being a big deal. But I guess I'll find out when I try it. One-tenth races space out the top of the shock from the tower. Why do they do that? Well, many of them actually do it because the cars are just designed wrong and it rubs somewhere. It hits the links, so the front shocks are all some messed up angle, you know, so there's that. But then there's also this thing that I just talked about. Similar feeling as more anti-squat, it makes sense sometimes. That's what Robert says about that. Moving the shocks back on the tower with the long standoff. Similar feeling as more anti-squat, he says. I guess that's what it's for. Carbon versus aluminium tower. Just the weight. That's also something like some people say, oh, the carbon flexes. Ah, fuck. There's no way that, I mean, there are drivers that run like links in different holes on left to right, and these guys are gonna notice if the rear tower flexes differently. Come on, that's bullshit. I don't believe that for a second. The carbon is just more lightweight, so lighter. Gary matches the angle of the shock body to the anti-squat on 10 scale two-wheel drive. Yeah, man. Okay, so we covered shock positions. We talked about 10 scale worlds. We talked about how to be a champion, not a fanboy. We did some Q&A. Is there anything else we need to cover, or do we call it a day? Man, we averaged like 140 people on here. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. I agree with the carbon tower generating more grip comment. Okay, I was gonna leave because someone wrote e-buggy, but what's this? Who said carbon tower generates more grip? There is no way the carbon, or put a carbon tower on and you'll have more grip because it flexes. That's complete bullshit, really. That's like saying that a cab forward body gives more steering in hairpins. Really, fuck's sake. There's no aerodynamics in a hairpin in 8-scale buggy, okay? That's as stupid as Vice champion. TLR, Vice A finalists. Jesus Christ. If I run 10 scale, I'll see. I'll see what? If you run 10 scale, I mean, Jesus, how much is the weight difference? 20 grams? So put a 20 gram weight on there, you know, and see what happens in 10 scale. That has nothing to do with it, how it flexes. Complete BS, my friend. Did you put the live podcast and driver social Saturday night of RCGP in the schedule? What are you talking about? I just, unfortunately, by mistake, read a comment from Keenan, and now I'm all pissed off again. Vice e-buggy. Clippy, clippy.